G'day and welcome aboard Mimpi, our Moody 38. I'm Kim. And this is Steve. We bought our sailing boat in Preveza, Greece in October 2019 and are planning to sail the Mediterranean and eventually end up back in Western Australia.
We left Albania in July 2020 and headed north towards Montenegro. And one of the things we had to decide when we got to Montenegro was where we were going to spend winter. The first port of call was the harbour of Bar, where we could check in. And we checked into Bar and stayed there for a couple of months. And during that time it gave us the opportunity to decide where we wanted to stay in Montenegro over winter. There were a number of choices, and basically we started by looking at all of the marinas and quays and harbours that were in Montenegro. We decided to use Bar as our stopping point so that we could explore the other areas around Montenegro and get a feeling for where we wanted to stay over winter. And as it turns out, there's quite a few anchorages, quays, harbours and marinas. And what I want to talk about now is the process we went through on deciding where to stay for. The sailing season here in Montenegro is divided into effectively summer and winter. And the winter lasts between 5 and 7 months. So we were looking for somewhere to stay for about 7 months. And what we would do is we would find where we wanted to stay and secure a contract to stay in that marina or harbour or quay, wherever it was. And on the basis of that contract, we could then apply for a temporary residency permit to be able to stay for that whole period. So how did we decide where we wanted to stay? Well, the first thing we did was we looked at the pilot book. We've got one of these books that covers pretty well everywhere that we're going to be sailing. This is the Adriatic pilot book, which covers Croatia, Slovenia, Montenegro and the east coast of Italy and Albania. The pilot book gives us details of the harbour and the waterways in and around the coast. So as you go in, you can see what the depths are, what facilities are available at each of those stopping points. The harbour checklist for Montenegro shows 20 harbours, marinas and quays, and we had to make a decision as to which one of those we were going to stay at. The first thing we did was to look at what are the criteria we were going to use to make that decision. We basically broke the criteria down into 4 areas. The first one is protection from weather or shelter. In other words, with prevailing winds or strong winds, are we going to be protected? The second one is the facilities that might be available at that particular site. And those facilities might include water, electricity, showers, toilets. Other facilities include shops, restaurants, chandleries and availability of fuel. The third thing on our decision list was whether there was a wintering sailing community at that location. So is there 1 boat or 2 boats? Are we the only ones there? Or is there a community of 20, 30, 100 people associated with staying on boats during the winter? The last and least important was really cost. The others were far more important. To begin our selection, there were 19 sites identified in the Montenegro pilot book. We added one more, the airport marina, which is a brand new marina that's opened up not far from the airport. So that made 20. We also searched the Cruising Association pages on the web, and Noonsite as another source of information. In using our first criteria looking for shelter and protection from the weather, we narrowed the 20 down to 6. And those 6 were Bar, Budva, Bogiva, Porto Montenegro, Kotor and the airport marina. On that basis we decided road trip was necessary. We hired a car and we went and visited all of the marinas. The next selection criteria we had was facilities. The road trip was really helpful. It allowed us to narrow down the 6 that we already had immediately down to 5. The airport dropped off. The facilities there were quite limited and we decided that wasn't for us. And that left Bar, Budva, Porto Montenegro and Kotor. And all of those had facilities that were quite reasonable. Of the 4 that were left on our list, Budva and Kotor had limited facilities compared to Porto Montenegro and Bar. Next we considered community. What type of sailing community and who was there over winter that we would have to be able to socialise with, enjoy the odd drink and a meal. In looking at the 4, it left Bar, Budva and Porto Montenegro. While we were staying in Bar, while there were a few boats at the marina, we realised that there were only about 3 boats, us included, that had people living on board, so a very limited community. That left Budva and Porto Montenegro. At Budva, while there are quite a number of super yachts there and a few sailing boats, there didn't seem to be a large sailing community there. So with the list of 20 now narrowed down to 3, Bar, Budva and Porto Montenegro, the last criteria was to look at how much. And at the end of the day, when it came down to price, Bar was the cheapest of the 3, and Budva and Porto Montenegro were very similar. We found this unusual, but it's because of COVID. Porto Montenegro had decided to discount their normal rates, and it made the value that we were getting for staying there so much better. Normally the cost to stay at Porto Montenegro would have been prohibitive for us. It's quite expensive. But because of COVID, they decided to offer significant discounts, and it made the cost at Porto Montenegro similar to staying at Budva. And on that basis, we decided that Porto Montenegro was actually the best value for money of the 3 marinas. In the end, we decided that Porto Montenegro was where we wanted to stay. After several communications, we were able to secure a contract, and they were very helpful in helping us to apply for our temporary residency permits for Montenegro. Thanks for listening to my explanation. Thanks for listening to my dribble. What?
I'm just covering my face here. I'm not here. I'm invisible.
You can't see me, I can't see you.
I'm not here. I'm not up there on the wall.
Thanks for listening to my dribble. If you'd like to hear more dribble, did you say?
Remember to like and subscribe.
Remember to like and subscribe. See you later.
The end.
Say bye.
Is it going?
Bingo, where's his name?
We left Albania in... I don't like this. Well, this you really need someone talking to it. There are quite a number of... Can you take just voice recordings off this thing, Kim?
Yeah.
Okay. Fucking flies. What else do you need me to say, Kim? Okay, that's it.
This community service announcement is brought to you by the letter S and K and the number 7.
Hi, this is a message for Nick. I'm Steve, Dad. Nick, could you please help Holly to check the water, oil and transmission fluid in her car? Thanks, dude.